world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive. We're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white.
Welcome to the Red Pill Sports Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and get into the show. We'll be talking about UFC 259 and what went down there. We're going to talk a little bit about the Dak Prescott deal that just came through. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in China. And, hey, they're a little bit concerned about masculinity and it not being taught and being demonized. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Hey, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And then, we also have a little bit of news as far as the NBA and LaChina James and how essentially the NBA All-Star game got its arse handed to it by a interview done by a billionaire celebrity media personality interviewing a millionaire royal family members complaining about how they're oppressed. So, pretty hilarious. Okay, guys, so as we get into the show, please like, subscribe, comment. I don't care if you agree or you disagree. If you even think I am a clown and you just want to share this with your friends so you can make fun of me, that is cool with me as well. Can't wait till I get my first hater. Awesome. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the show. Hey, what is up, guys? Let's go ahead and get into this segment. So, UFC 259 wrapped up this weekend, and we had Israel Adesanya challenging Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title. We had Megan Anderson stepping up to face Amanda Nunes and take a shot at the 145 title. And then we had Aljamain Sterling trying to take the title from Peter Yan this weekend. Now, I would say that most of these bouts went kind of as expected, but with some major twists. So the Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling fight was interesting in the fact that Sterling came out with a lot of energy, was definitely trying to set a pace, maybe a bit too frantic, and actually started to look like he was losing control of the fight. Maybe he had started a little bit too fast, looked like maybe he was starting to gas just a bit. Unfortunately for Peter Yan, or Petra Yan, he kneed Sterling while he had a knee down and lost via disqualification. This is the first time a championship belt had ever been exchanged hands due to a disqualification. And then we had Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. This was a one-sided affair. Nunes pretty much dominated, won in near record time. Got a triangle, rear triangle with an armbar. It was so quick. It was really ridiculous. Now, the Yan versus Izzy fight. This was a fight that went in a way that I think that most people would not have predicted. I don't think anybody predicted that if the fight were to go the distance and that if the fight were to be fought at a long range the way that it was, I don't think people would have thought that Yan would win that fight. Everything about the description of this fight, had you known the description of the fight before the fight, you would have probably assumed that Adesanya won this fight. This fight was fought at primarily two different distances. It was fought primarily at a kicking distance, which both fighters were using front kicks and roundhouse kicks to go to the legs, go to the body, front kicks to go to the body, and in a very tight clinching distance. Now, and the majority of it was done at the kicking distance. Had you told people that that's the way the fight was going to play out prior, and oh, by the way, it was also going to be a very technical fight, very technical, most people would have given the advantage to Adesanya, and they would have said that Adesanya won that fight walking away. Blachowicz really opened some eyes. He showed that he can be a tactician. He showed that he can be smart. He showed that he can be patient. And he outpointed and out-tacticaled the quote-unquote most technical fighter, striker in the UFC. All in all, what I saw is Adesanya got somewhat exposed that he has a few flaws in his game that still need to be shored up. But I don't want that to take away from the fact that Jan and his team came in with a beautiful game plan. They stuck to it, and they really got a really good win. So let's talk about what happened in this fight. So essentially, coming out into the first round, you could tell that Jan wanted to be very, very patient in this fight. He was not rushing in. Now, I'll be honest, as I was watching the fight, I thought I was seeing one thing, but the commentators kept talking as though it was a one-sided affair and as though Izzy was just dominating Jan. And it got annoying to the point where I literally had to turn the volume all the way completely down so that it wasn't skewing my opinion of what I was seeing. So I turned the volume all the way down about midway through the first round, and I started to just score the fight on what I saw. Now, early on in the commentating, they kept talking about how Jan was biting on every feint that Izzy is putting out there. He's biting on everything. Yes, but feints don't win fights. And what I mean by that is that I'm not saying that as a strategy, feints can't help you win a fight, but a feint in and of itself is just that. It's a feint. It is a fake of a strike. It never actually is thrown, therefore it can never actually land. And so while that may make things look a certain way, may look like that fighter is in control of the fight, it really doesn't count for anything. Okay? Feints are not scored via the scoring system. Oh, did you see that amazing feint? He made Jan jump back 50 feet. Okay, that doesn't score you any points. So after I turned off the volume and I just watched and scored what I saw was Jan was being very, very smart. He was reacting to feints. But rather than reacting in feints in ways that would open him up, he was reacting in ways that was closing avenues of attack down. Not only that, but I started to notice that Jan was not the only one biting on the feints. Jan was doing feinting of his own, and Izzy was giving major respect to those feints. He was really reacting heavily to the feints of Jan. I also didn't like the way that Izzy was reacting to the feints. He was reacting in a way that was, how would I say, John Jones-esque, trying to use his length to create space and open up, getting his hands away from his face, his hands away from his body, and kind of extending away. What this did was it allowed, when Jan did feint and decided to come in, for Jan to connect by coming around or through the extended arms of Izzy. As I started to watch, what I saw was, after the first round, Jan was very respectful, very, very respectful of Izzy and the power that Izzy might have been carrying. But after the first round, it seemed like Jan started to lose a little bit of respect for the power of Adesanya. It was almost as if he realized, this guy's not going to knock me out unless I run into his hardest punch. So Jan did a very good job of making sure that that's what he avoided. He did a very good job of countering the counter striker. He did an absolutely amazing job. One of the things I did notice with Izzy as well was that later on in the press conference, Izzy was saying that he was just out there having fun and that he wasn't trying to knock Jan out. Maybe he needs to rewatch the fight, and maybe he consciously wasn't thinking that he wanted to knock Jan out. But if you rewatch this fight, there were times where Izzy was trying to counter Jan. There was a small opening, but you could see Izzy loading up on his power punch, which essentially would slow him down that fraction of a second that would allow Jan to pull on the strike, and Izzy would just completely miss. What this loading up on these punches, on these power strikes was doing was it was neutralizing Izzy's speed advantage, right? Jan was throwing to be quick, and specifically to be quick, and it looked like Izzy was trying to throw hard. Maybe he wasn't thinking about it consciously, but he was definitely trying to throw hard. Lastly, the other huge part in Izzy's game that we saw was a major hole, was his ground game. I thought coming into this fight that people were exaggerating Israel Adesanya's ability on the ground, and that his jiu-jitsu game was on levels that we had not yet actually seen, but people wanted to give that to him. And it turned out that I was right. The one thing that I think you can take away from this fight is, because styles make fights, and when you look at the style of Jan, it, as a striker, it doesn't match up particularly well with Adesanya. It's not a horrible matchup, but it doesn't match up particularly well. That being said, I think that were this John Jones, I think that his ground game, should he have gotten Izzy to the ground, which it looks like he probably could have, judging from the takedowns of Jan, which were not like spectacular takedowns. I mean, he did hit that one beautiful takedown in the fifth, that was super well timed. But other than that, some of the takedowns, stuff against the clinch game against the fence, you have to be real. John Jones' clinch game against the fence and that tripping game is way better than what Jan had. And his wrestling game is way better than what Jan brought. And we've seen his jiu-jitsu game, and we've seen him smash guys who are smaller, who have come up, to face him at light heavyweight. Chael, for instance. And, it was, Vitor Belfort. And it was a no contest. So, I feel like we probably got a little glimpse into what would happen should Adesanya take on Jones anytime in the near future. I mean, that just is what it is. And well, I'll come back to that here in a second. Let's move on and let's talk a little bit about the striking and how biased the commentating actually was. So, as I said, listening to the broadcast the night of the fight, they kept making it sound as if Adesanya was just piecing up Jan Blachowicz. But the fight stats don't show that. What the fight stats show is that Jan outstruck Izzy. And if you actually go and pull the striking punt totals for round by round, I think the only round that Izzy outstruck Jan is, I believe it was the second. Might have been the second. Might have been the third. You can't remember exactly. But there was only one round in which Izzy threw more strikes and landed more strikes than Jan, and it wasn't head and shoulders more strikes, right? It wasn't like he landed, 15 to Jan's, 5. It was something like 8 to 6 or something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But I remember feeling very justified in my decision to turn down the volume and for feeling like there was a lot of bias towards Izzy and to make Izzy sound much more dominant than he really was within this fight. But, you know, what can we say? Hats off to Jan. He's a great champion. Hopefully he'll move on, get another couple title defenses. He's an older guy. And sure, he's going to retire probably in the next 2 to, 5 years just because of age. And, hopefully he gets a couple wins, gets a couple defenses for himself, and he moves on. But let's go ahead and let's move on. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this whole Jon Jones, Israel Adesanya. So if we look at this Israel Adesanya Jon Jones matchup, like I said, Jon Jones is a much better wrestler than Jan. Jon Jones has a much better takedown game within the clinch. Just looking at the matchup of the styles, the types of fights, Jan's strength is not necessarily that long distance kicking game where we go one shot, two shot, maybe. One shot, two shot. And then a lot of moving around in between. That is not necessarily Jan's game. That's not the strongest part of his game. However, that is Jon Jones' strength. That's actually a very Jon Jones-esque style of game, right? If you watch a lot of Jon's fights, he doesn't flurry unless he thinks he has you hurt. He picks at you and he prods at you and he picks at you and he prods at you. And it's one strike, two strike, one strike, two strike, right? And lulls in between. If Izzy would have fought that style of fight with Jon, he would have lost the fight. Given that Izzy is a counter striker, I really don't know that we would see much difference in the fight. Because Jon is not, he doesn't rush, he doesn't, he doesn't bull rush into positions. Therefore, it would be the one strike, two strike type of thing. Izzy, to his credit, also does not bull rush into positions, right? Izzy's striking when he leads, he's really not leading to push his will on you. He's leading to try and get you to come forward. He's leading to try to bait you into becoming the aggressor so that he can counterpunch. That's where he feels comfortable. So, this far into Izzy's career, at the age that Izzy is, I find it hard to believe that he's going to change his game enough that it's not going to be problematic to fight a John Jones. And that's just on the striking, right? Should he decide to fight John Jones and John Jones decides to give him a shot, I find it problematic. The stylistic matchup, what we saw against Jan, a bigger, heavier guy, is that this is a bad matchup for Izzy to fight this style of fight. Not only that, but when it comes to the ground game, people will say, oh, Adesanya, his ground game will get better, his ground game will get better. This guy, for people forget, like, Israel looks very young. He looks very young, but the guy is in his 30s. Okay, in my personal experience, my anecdotal evidence from watching UFC, MMA for the past 20 years is that 25 years, whatever it's been, is that guys can have a revamp in their career. But if a revamp was needed and it was coming, it's come by this age already. Israel would be Tom Brady-esque in MMA if he were able to go back to the drawing board and completely change his striking and completely change his grappling game, or to take his grappling game from the level we saw to a whole new elite level. It would be Hall of Fame, the GOAT of GOAT stories for Israel Adesanya to do that. The reality is, if the type of fighter you are, what is it? I think Izzy's 32. At 32, the time it would take for Izzy to become an elite level grappler. I mean, there's no way it's going to change. He's going to be able to focus on that, become an elite level grappler, and change his style of striking to become a problem for a John Jones style in particular. Now, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm saying this is my anecdotal evidence. This is based on my 25 years of watching MMA. I'm saying that it's just not likely. It's not what we've seen happen with fighters. And because of that, I have zero interest. I now have zero interest in watching an Israel Adesanya versus John Jones fight, because I feel like I know how that fight would go. And Izzy said something very telling. He said, wow, him and his camp, about Jan, him and his camp did a really good job game planning for me. Jan's camp and Jan Blachowicz are not known particularly for game planning, sticking to a game plan, or putting together sophisticated game plans. They're not known for that. And I'm not saying that they're not good at it. I'm just saying it's not their forte. It's not the thing that, hey, this camp is known for this. To the contrary, John Jones, Greg Jackson, they are known for putting together game plans and executing game plans. That's what put them on the map. So I have no doubt that this would get Greg's full attention, that this would get John Jones full attention should they fight. And the game plan that they put together would absolutely dismantle Israel Adesanya. This is MMA, guys. It is not kickboxing. I really do believe that if this was a straight kickboxing match, Israel might be able to outpoint John Jones. Could be, maybe. There would be a chance, but in MMA, when he can clinch him, take him to the ground, and then stay on top of him, ground and pound him, no, I just don't see it. This kind of and this fight with Jan solidified that in my mind. All right, guys, that's all we got for this topic, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next segment. All right, for this segment, let's go ahead and get into it. So, Outkick is reporting. You can go follow this link if you want to read the entire article, but essentially, the NBA All-Star game was this weekend. If you didn't know, to be honest, I wouldn't have known if I didn't follow sports as part of the thing that I do for this show. Because let's just face it, the NBA has become very unwatchable. The reality is, even before the whole woke sports thing and LeBron James wanting to run his mouth about things that he really is not educated on. He pretends he's educated on. He says, asinine things like, I do my homework, yet if you were to actually sit down with him and try to have a conversation and have a dialogue with this man and, ask him some tough questions about, hey, how come, I understand why you would say this, but why would you say this? Why are you, anti this and that discrimination, yet you had a problem with people criticizing China who, there's strong evidence to suggest that these things are going on in China, and then as well as the whole Hong Kong thing. And he would never have that conversation with somebody, right? Because the reality is he hasn't done his homework. He doesn't do his homework. The only homework he does is the homework about how much cash China's going to put in his bank account. That's the homework that he does. So that's just the reality. But even before all of that political minutia that the NBA decided that they wanted to insert themselves into, the NBA was getting to be extremely unwatchable. And why is it becoming unwatchable? Well, because when you tune in to the NBA, when you tune into any pro sport, honestly, one of the biggest reasons why this is entertainment is because you tune in to watch athletes do things that are near superhuman, right? Things that you could never do. This is one of the reasons why, or that you wouldn't see, okay, going to a local high school gym, right? This is why, for instance, the WNBA is having a hard time, picking up and getting a real true fan base, because for the most part, men are the sports fans in America, right? Men make up probably 80%, 90% of the sports fans in America, and it really is not exciting to watch women who are just slightly taller than the average American man do things that are not very spectacular. That, you could go to a high school gym and see high school boys be more athletic. All right. So this is part of the reason why. And they haven't found their niche. They haven't found the way to sell this right, to sell women's NBA. They haven't found a way to sell it properly. There's some things they could do to tweak the game that would make it a much more entertaining, fan-friendly game, but they're not going to do those things. And they're not going to do those things for a number of reasons. And no, I'm not talking about going topless or something ridiculous like that. Okay, I'm being serious here. There are some things they could do to make the women's game much more watchable, much more fan friendly. But they're never going to do those things because they're not going to admit that there has to be some adjustments to the game in order to make it fan friendly. They're just going to continue to try and shove it down your throat. Anyhow, I digress. One of the reasons why the NBA has become unwatchable is because more and more, with the softening of the NBA player, you're seeing less and less spectacular play, less quote unquote superhuman plays. It You're seeing absolutely the evaporation of any kind of defensive effort. You don't see any kind of true rivalry between guys on different teams. You never feel like there is a, for instance, when you tune into a fight, you know both guys are trying to knock each other out, right? You never quite feel that way when you're watching the NBA anymore. You never feel like somebody's trying to take hearts or take souls, right? You don't feel like that. It feels like everybody's just happy to allow everybody to get theirs, and we'll just race to see who can get more points by the end of the game. And it really, there's little to no defense, right? Further, because now everything is a foul, everything, there's less physical contact, it's just become a less physical game. Not that shooting a 3 point NBA range 3 pointer is easy, but let's face it, it's just not super spectacular. It just isn't. It doesn't pump you up, it doesn't give you the adrenaline rush that watching, let's even just go back a few years, right? It's not like watching a Kobe Bryant, you know, catch the ball at the top of the key, put a couple of moves, and slash to the bucket and go up over one or two guys and slam it down. It's just not the same excitement level as, oh, we're going to pass the ball around the outside, pass it around the outside, pass it around the outside. Okay, boom. Finally, we got somebody open because they can't keep up with the rotations, and we're going to shoot a 3 point shot. It's just not as exciting. It just isn't. So the NBA was already starting to hurt is in terms of viewership. But now, this latest story here, Outkick covering. So essentially, Prince Harry and I think her last name is Markle, Meghan Markle. I don't know why she has a different last name than her husband. That's ridiculous. But anyhow, essentially they had their interview with Oprah, basically talking about why they're no longer part of the royal family or why they're stepping away from the royal family, and that was directly competing with the All-Star game. So ad space wise, this is one of the ways you can see whether or not a particular product on TV, program on TV is actually doing well or not, is how much they're charging for the ad space, during a program. The ad space for the Prince Harry, Meghan Markle interview was almost 2 times the amount of the NBA All-Star game. The NBA All-Star game essentially got destroyed by an interview of two people who don't even want to be royals anymore. This is really telling. This is very, very telling because we're in a lull, right? This time through about July, the NBA generally rules the weekend for ratings You get a small dip, generally speaking, right around now for March Madness as people focus on NCAA basketball. But pretty much from this time, which is right after the Super Bowl, through July, which is, you know, getting into the playoffs towards the end of the playoffs for the NBA, the NBA has a very cornered market as far as sports goes. Yet they cannot get ratings up. Now, you've got to start asking yourself, why is this? And it has to come back to the fact that now I'm not saying that the woke issues were are not part of the catalyst, okay? But I'm going to put it this way. I feel like the wokeness was just the straw that finally broke the camel's back of the NBA fan. It was just the straw that broke the camel's back. The reality is that the NBA had continuously become more and more unwatchable, on top of everything else, with the league becoming less and less spectacular, on top of, it becoming softer and softer game, on top of these guys not having true rivalries. You have these super teams that they're creating now. And I get it. This started, you know, back in the day. You probably say it started with the big three, even though I think it might have started before that. But anyhow, I digress. People will say it started with the big three in Boston. But you have these super teams. And essentially, what they don't realize is what these NBA players do not realize is they're starting to globetrotter-esque the league. Now, when I was a kid, and even as an adult, going to go see the Globetrotters, I mean, it was fun. It was fun, right? The Globetrotters were amazing, and they'd blow out the Washington Generals or whoever the heck the other team was. I don't even know. And, they'd do all their fancy things and blow them out, and it was fun. It was fun for a game. Maybe if I had, free tickets and they were still in town, maybe a second night. But after 2 or 3 nights of watching this spoof of basketball, right? It's no longer fun. And essentially, with these super teams, this is what you're doing. You're creating Globetrotter-esque teams, a handful of them, literally, about 5, that actually have a shot at winning anything. And then you have a bunch of Washington Generals teams. And who wants to watch that? Like, why would you want to pay for that? Not night in and night out. I mean, here and there, yeah, of course. And why are you going to put that on TV? Night in and night out. Maybe I pay for it to see you in person, to say, hey, this is an experience. But why would I? But if we're not having fans in the stands, what does it matter? And then, for instance, you then go and you have TV ratings, right? But on TV, why do I want to watch that? I'm not getting the experience of seeing you in person, so why would I care? Why would I care? And this is something I think the NBA is going to have to rectify. I can't believe that this is sustainable for more than maybe another season. If next season, ratings wise, is comparable to this season, I can't believe that they're not in major financial troubles. There's no way they can afford to pay the players what they're paying and operate within this country and make a profit. There's no way. Which begs the question, just how much money is China giving to the NBA? that the NBA has no worry at all that they're becoming unwatchable in the United States. Anyhow, guys, that's what I got. And let's go ahead and we'll move on to the next topic. Hey, what is up, guys? Let's go ahead and get into this segment. So, apparently, the Dallas Cowboys have come to terms, for real this time, with Dak Prescott on a deal that, wow, what can I say? If this deal is as reported, is a horrible fail on the part of Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, as it's being reported, this deal is worth $160 million over 4 years. Something like 60 some million in the first year with a 70 million signing contract. It is a ridiculous amount of money for a quarterback who is, honestly, if we're being quite honest, is an a just above average quarterback. We're talking about a B or a B plus quarterback. I've talked about this before. If you're giving grades out to quarterbacks and you could only give, uh, out three of each grade, right? Three of each grade. Well, you'd say an A plus and A minus. Let's say you can only give out three of each. That would mean that Dak is barely uh, considered in the top 10 to 12 quarterbacks. Like, he would be in the B plus ranking. He would not be in the A plus. He would not be in the A, and he would not be in the A minus. Some of the bigger issues at play here, along with the fact that the Dallas Cowboys will be paying Dak Prescott so much money, is that they also gave away all of the power to decide the future of the franchise by putting in a no trade clause. You know, it. I really do feel, and I really generally have the back of the player when it comes to contracts, when it comes to them holding out, because I understand, at least in the NFL, I understand that they do not have guaranteed contracts. That being said, the guaranteed money, the signing bonuses, that's where it's at. Okay, that's where in the NFL you need to make your money. If you're giving a significant signing bonus to a player, I think it's utterly ridiculous that you do not give them, or that you give them a no trade clause. It's ridiculous. That's the whole having their cake and eating it too type of mentality. And one of the reasons why I'm a little bit frustrated is because it's so hard to trust the mainstream sports media to give you the full story. And let me tell you exactly what I mean when it comes to this Dak Prescott deal. This Dak Prescott's deal was originally reported as a 4 year deal. Then, as you read a little bit deeper into some of the tweets that Adam Schefter put out and things of that nature, you'll find that this is quote unquote technically a 6 year deal that can be voidable to a 4 year deal. Yet, no details on what exactly that means, right? And who is in control of that? Is it the Cowboys that can void it to a 6 year deal? Or to a 4 year deal? Or is it Dak Prescott that can opt out? Or is it both? Do they both have the power? We don't know. And if in fact it's a 6 year deal, well, that changes. That changes everything, right? Then that means the Cowboys came away with the win, that they essentially got Dak Prescott for the $30 million a year. Then it becomes an average of $30 million a year, not $40 million a year for the contract. But the media, okay, because they've been pushing this narrative that Dak needs to get paid, the media has to save face. And because they've been pushing that narrative, they will bury the lead, so to speak, in order to twist the news into saying what they want it to say, which is, well, if you, yeah, technically it's a 6 year deal, but because it's voidable to a 4, we're going to say all that money is coming in 4 years, and so therefore it averages $40 million a year. Now, if the contract is a 6 year deal, and the Cowboys are in control of being able to void out the contract, then that means that they locked him up for the. That means that JJ got everything that he pretty much wanted, with the exception of the no trade clause and the no tag clause. That means that the franchise got everything they wanted. Now you can understand how that would be problematic to report the news in that fashion if you've been going after Jerry Jones and you've been propping up Dak as the greatest thing since sliced bread on one side of your mouth, but then on the other side of your mouth saying how Dak Prescott is a failing quarterback and he's not great and he's never going to be good. Look, I have been 100% consistent and honest about my assessment of Dak Prescott. 100%. Okay? I cannot say the same for most of those in the media. One of the people that comes to mind the most is Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp is a complete hack. He's a complete hack. On one side of his mouth, he wants to sell you how great Dak Prescott is and how he needs his money. And on the other side of his mouth, he wants to tell you that essentially Dak Prescott is trash. And, you know, Skip Bayless is really good about. I really don't watch too much ESPN, but I'll watch clips here and there. And Skip has been good about calling out Shannon for this. Like, you gave him how many F's in his last full season? You gave him F, 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 F. But now you're like, pay the man, pay the man, pay the man. Well, it makes no sense. And that actually encapsulates the entire opinion of the mainstream sports media when it comes to Dak Prescott. They want to tell you how overrated Dak Prescott is. Okay, to an extreme. To an extreme, right? If you hear them tell you it, well, Dak is playing, he's like a C quarterback. Maybe even a C minus quarterback. That, Mitchell Trubisky is better than him. Okay. Now, I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is a horrible quarterback. I feel like there are some things that go on in Chicago, offensive wise, that I'm like, man, why are you guys doing that? You're not making it any easier on your quarterback. But anyhow, I digress. They're going to make it sound like he's, not much better than that. They're going to make it sound like, these rookie quarterbacks are better than him. That all these other quarterbacks are much, much better than Dak Prescott. But then when it comes to paying him, all of a sudden they're singing his praises and how he should be the highest paid or second highest paid quarterback behind, Patrick Mahomes, if the Cowboys knew what was good for him. Well, which is it, guys? Which is it? So, all in all, it really comes down to the finer details on whether or not this is a good contract for the Cowboys. I've also read some analysis saying that because it's a 6 year deal, this is going to be a cap hit of like 22 million after the first year. That the first year will be the biggest cap hit, and then after that it'll be about a $22 million cap hit after that. If that's the case, if Jerry Jones was able to work that out, it's a significant win for the Cowboys. And like I said, it means that Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys got everything that they wanted. They got the long-term deal. Excuse me. They got the long-term deal, which is one of the things that they were asking for, right? They wanted 5 year. They wanted a 5 year deal. Dak wanted a 4 year deal. You know, if they signed him for 6 and they're in control of that, then that means that they got everything that they wanted. So I'll wait to hear from probably like Colin Cowherd or Clay on Outkick. They seem to be more authentic and honest when it comes to breaking down news, and they don't necessarily always push their own narrative. I mean, Colin a little more so does push his own narrative. If he paints himself into a corner, I know he does his Colin was right, Colin was wrong, but there's a lot of things that he was wrong that he kind of glosses over. But you know, I feel like they're a little bit more objective and they come at it, you know, a little bit more honest, and we'll break it down a little more honestly. So hopefully later on today or tomorrow, they'll get into what exactly this contract, how it breaks down for the Cowboys. What does it mean for it to be a 6 year deal with a 4 year voidable, or you know whatever it's called, and how that means. Now, the good thing is, at least for Cowboy fans, this means that we can start looking forward to the draft, knowing that what are the Cowboys thinking about in the draft. We can make some good assumptions about what's going to be drafted. We have a great pick at number 10. I think there's a lot of things we could pick up that we need. So it should make, you know, it does take some stress off of the draft. It makes it a little bit more fun going forward. But we'll see. So that's what we got, guys, and we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get into this segment of the show. As you all know, part of the show, part of the reason why we do this show is to talk about masculinity and to talk about the whole idea, the nature of masculinity in our pop culture today. How, to make it a positive thing, because I think that there's way too many negative, let's say, shadings about being a man and masculinity in our current pop culture. And it seems like those effects are even trickling into China, to the point where China is actually going to start teaching masculinity and traditional masculinity within their school system and their state school. So I'm going to kind of scroll through. I've already read this article, but I'm going to kind of scroll through and read the parts that are interesting, because you got the typical claptrap from the, shout out to Rush Limbaugh here, may he rest in peace. The drive-by media, okay? The drive-by media, you know what you're going to get from them. They're going to tell you how this is toxic, and how, you don't want to put this kind of pressure on young boys because they might not be traditionally masculine, this, that, and the other. But let's go ahead and get to the place where the interesting part of this article. So here talks about, in January, Chinese Ministry of Education published plans to, quote, cultivate masculinity in boys from kindergarten through high school. The initiative involves hiring and training more gym teachers, assessing students more comprehensively in physical education, making health education mandatory, and supporting research on topics such as the influence of the internet celebrity phenomenon in values of adolescence. Okay, so first of all, what about any of that is a bad thing? I don't understand. But if you were to come to this article and read it yourself, you would see how supposedly this is anti-woman or something. I don't know. The plan follows a warning from one of China's top political advisors that the nation is experiencing a national, quote, masculinity crisis. Chinese children have been spoiled by housewives and teachers, said the advisor, Si Zifu, in a political proposal in May. Children would soon become delicate, shy, and effeminate unless action was taken, he said. Young students practice Sanda's fighting skills in the gym. Danzi County, Zhu, let me see, Guzhou Province, China, July 2020. Cost photo, Barcroft Media via Getty Images Archives addressing the issue in this matter. Masculinity wrote, warning that feminization of Chinese children threatens the survival and development of China. So essentially, what this guy is saying is that this, but these, now here's the thing. China regulates its, internet way to a much, much greater extent than the United States and many countries in the West. And if China is feeling a cultural shift via the internet influence of pop culture and the gay, transgender, gender fluid movement, this really speaks to how powerful and how far-reaching the internet can be, because you're talking about a communist oligarch-like, system. It's very authoritarian, right? A communist authoritarian regime, which we know is pretty much essentially what many in our country want to install. And even there, they're having a hard time, even with all of their regulations, they're having a hard time with this particular influence about masculinity. Now, the problem that I have, and the problem that I have with people attacking masculinity, is that it's never good enough to simply say that, hey, you should be tolerant or that you should be accepting of people who are maybe not traditional, right? So if you have a boy that tends to be a little bit soft in school and he likes to, he's not traditionally, quote unquote, traditionally, right? Masculine type boy. He doesn't play sports. He doesn't play outside. He doesn't play in the dirt. He doesn't throw the football around or the baseball around. And he's a bit soft. The problem is that we are not just simply saying, hey, allow this kid to be himself, and if he wants to go play with the girls and do those things and whatever, and do whatever they're doing and sew and stitch and yada yada yada, well then so be it, and let him be happy, and that's the way it is. It never stops there, right? It has to go on into, no, we have to force all the other boys to do these things, and we have to teach them that how they want to play rough and how they want to wrestle and roughhouse, all of that is bad. All of those things are negative and quote unquote toxic, right? And so that is where I have the problem here in our country, in the United States. In China, it sounds like what they're having a problem with is, or what they're trying to do is even nip that in the bud from the beginning and just saying, hey, we don't even want you to teach anything to our kids via the internet. I think that, China is a lot like a broken clock. There's some things that, a broken clock, can get things right twice a day, wrong most of the time, but it's right twice a day. Uh, Similarly, China sometimes can get things right, even though I think they're wrong on a lot of things. And the idea that you're going to reintroduce, and focus on physical education in gym classes for boys, I think is a good thing. I really do feel that, one of the downfalls why we're having a big, huge problem in, graduation rates, college enrollment, overall in education with boys as they mature into men. One of the reasons why we're having a huge problem with it in our country is the fact that we no longer have the physical activities that reinforce teaching. Um, you know, we don't have the outlet for energy the way that we used to for boys. And it's known. I mean, they've done the studies. They know if you go out and you read just some very simple books, they know that education is not a one size fits all. They know that approach does not work, and they know that there are tendencies for modes of learning that can be bucketed by gender, right? That generally speaking, okay, generally speaking, girls learn one way and boys learn another way. So they know this. This is not something I'm saying that's, oh, earth-shattering, sexist malarkey like they would like to always paint it, right? And so China deciding that they're going to focus on those things is actually a really good idea. The idea that they're going to actually research what the impact of pop culture and internet phenomenon and celebrity is on culture and on boys. I mean, well, you can't always trust everything that China puts out of their research. I mean, the reality is that research should be done. Um, you know, it kind of boggles my mind that you know that you cannot say these things. Now, what what is funny to me, what is going to be entertaining to me, is exactly what are the how are the SJWs going to attack this, if they're going to attack it, right? Because it's China. And so far, the SJWs across the world, across the nation, people like China James have been silent on China. But more and more, we're reading more and more that China is putting out things that are, uh, you know, very would be cancel culture worthy in our society, right? Everything from just recently a judge ruling that homosexuality is a mental illness, to now we're going to push traditional masculinity on our boys, or Chinese traditional masculinity onto our boys, and we're going to teach them this, and we don't want our boys feminized. Like, that would be seen as anti-feminist here in the States. So it's going to be interesting to see how the SJWs push back against this, because they tend to only speak up here in the West, but tend to be silent on any atrocities that are committed by China, by anything, that's horrible that China might do. They just kind of tend to be silent on it, no matter how bad it is. They just like to call the United States like the Great Satan, and then that's it. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say. But I did feel like it was interesting that China is seeing this, even with all the regulation of their internet, and that they're taking steps, or they feel like they're taking steps to, uh, you know, stop it in its tracks. And we'll see. You know, biggest thing for me is I would just be happy if we had a balanced, positive look at masculinity instead of constantly be painting masculinity as some kind of toxic trait that should be shunned. But that's what I got, guys. And, we'll go ahead and wrap up this segment. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the show for this week. You know, trying to put out more and more content for you guys. I'm going to try and start putting out some more stuff. There's some really interesting things that I'd like to talk about. Everything from the a court custody case. Man's children was taken away from him due to the whole COVID-19, and apparently he did not have the right political stance on masking or not masking. It's crazy. Like to cover some of that stuff. Stuff coming up about Aljamain Sterling and whether or not he should be posing and boasting about his title that he won via DQ. Petra Yan. So many interesting topics. So help me out. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. It really helps out to gain more followers. If you like what I have to say, or even if you think, hey, this dude is off his rocker, but it's comedic because I'm just so horrible, share it with your friends so they can make fun of me too, and comment and watch. And I really appreciate it, guys. Think that's all we got for this week. We really went over on time, so I'm sorry about that. We're going to try and come back to and return back to in the next couple weeks some of the basics and some of the things you can do as a beginner to get good at jiu-jitsu a bit faster. We'll talk about some of the positions that you should be training from on a regular basis if you're a beginner. And we'll talk about why. So I think that's all I got today, guys. Remember, be practical, be purposeful, get fit with a purpose, guys.
Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive. We're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird. You're so stupid.